The stars looked different from the bridge of the UES Liberty. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the main window watching the endless darkness of space. His ship was 3 months into a deep space mission, looking for new worlds that humans could visit. The Liberty was Earth's newest exploration ship, built with the best technology humans had ever made. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the communications array," said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, and she had been monitoring space signals for the past week. Amy was young but smart, and she never missed anything important. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of strange?" Amy pointed at her screen. "It's not natural background noise. This is definitely artificial. Someone or something is broadcasting this signal. Doctor." Peter Collins, the ship's language expert, hurried over to join them. Peter was a tall man with gray hair who had spent his whole life studying how different cultures communicated. "Let me hear it," he said. The signal played through the speakers. It was a series of beeps and electronic sounds that seemed to follow a pattern. The crew on the bridge stopped their work to listen. Everyone knew this could be the most important moment in human history. "It's definitely not from Earth," Amy said. "The signal is coming from the direction of the Proxima system about 12 light-years away." Jake felt his heart beat faster. First contact with aliens had always been possible, but no one expected it to happen on a routine exploration mission. "Can you clean up the signal? Make it clearer?" Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. The signal became stronger and more distinct. It was definitely not random noise. There was intelligence behind it, a mind trying to communicate something important. "Captain," said Lisa Wang, another communications specialist who had joined them, "I think I see mathematical patterns in the signal. Look at these sequences." She pointed to her screen where the signal was displayed as waves and numbers. The patterns repeated every few minutes like someone was sending the same message over and over again. Dr. Collins studied the patterns carefully. "This is fascinating. Whoever is sending this understands that mathematics is universal. They're using prime numbers and geometric sequences to get our attention." "But what are they trying to say?" Jake asked. "That's going to take time to figure out," Peter replied. "But Captain, there's something else, the way this signal is being broadcast, the power levels, the repetition. This feels like a distress call." The bridge became quiet. Everyone understood what that meant. Somewhere in space, an alien civilization might be in trouble and they were calling for help. "Amy, how long has this signal been broadcasting?" Jake asked. "Based on the signal strength and the way it's degrading, I'd say it's been going for at least 6 months, maybe longer," Amy replied. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "All right, people, we're going to decode this message. I want all our best minds working on this around the clock. Lisa, contact Earth and tell them what we found. But don't cause a panic. Just tell them we've detected artificial signals from space." For the next 3 days, the crew of the Liberty worked harder than they ever had before. Dr. Collins and Lisa Wang barely slept as they tried to understand the alien language. They used every computer program and translation method they knew. So, breakthrough came on the 4th day. Peter burst into the captain's quarters at 3 in the morning, his eyes wide with excitement and fear. "Captain, we've got it. We've decoded the message." Jake quickly got dressed and followed Peter to the communications room. The entire senior staff was there, looking tired but alert. "Show me," Jake said. Peter activated the main screen. The alien signal was now displayed as text translated into English. Jake read the words and felt his blood turn cold. "We are the Velhari. Our worlds are dying. Our people are being killed. The Corvin hegemony has come to destroy us. We are not warriors. We are teachers, artists, and healers. We cannot fight them. They burn our cities and take our children. If anyone can hear this message, please help us. We do not want to conquer anyone. We just want to live. Our coordinates are included in this message. We are running out of time. Please, someone help us." The room was silent for a long moment. Everyone understood the weight of what they had just learned. Somewhere in space, an entire civilization was being destroyed, and they were asking for help. "There's more," Peter said quietly. They've included images and data about their attackers. The Corvin hegemony appears to be a military empire that conquers other species. The Velhari have been fighting them for 2 years, but they're losing badly. Amy spoke up. Captain, the signal is getting weaker. I think their broadcasting equipment is being damaged or destroyed. Jake looked around the room at his crew. These were good people, scientists and explorers who had joined the mission to discover new worlds and make peaceful contact with other species. Now, they were facing something nobody had prepared for. Lisa, send a message to Earth immediately. Tell them everything we've learned. We need instructions from the Defense Council. Yes, sir. Amy, can we send a reply to the Velhari? Let them know we received their message? I think so, but it will take time to figure out how to send it in their language. Do it. Tell them that humans have heard their call for help, and we're trying to figure out how to respond. Dr. Collins was still studying the alien data. Captain, based on their star charts and the technical information they've provided, I estimate the Velhari are about 50 years behind us in technology, but the Corvin hegemony is much more advanced. They have a large military and they've been conquering other species for centuries. How many species have they conquered? Jake asked. According to the Velhari data, at least 12 different civilizations. They don't just defeat their enemies, they completely destroy their cultures and enslave the survivors. Jake felt anger building inside him. The human race had spent decades dreaming about meeting other intelligent species, hoping to learn from them and share knowledge. Instead, their first contact was with refugees fleeing genocide. How long would it take us to reach the Velhari system? He asked his navigation officer. At maximum speed, about 6 weeks, sir. And how long before Earth can send additional ships? Even if they started building a fleet today, it would take months to reach us out here. Jake made the most important decision of his life. Set course for the Velhari system. We're going to help them. Captain, Lisa said carefully. We're just one exploration ship. We don't have heavy weapons or military training. Maybe not, Jake replied. But we're human, and humans don't abandon people who need help. The UES Liberty changed course, heading toward a war zone where an ancient evil was destroying innocent lives. The crew didn't know if they could make a difference, but they knew they had to try. The UES Liberty arrived at the Velhari system 6 weeks later, and Captain Jake Morrison immediately knew they were too late to prevent a tragedy. Through the main view screen, the crew could see the remains of what had once been a beautiful star system. 3 planets orbited a yellow sun, but only one still looked like it could support life. My God, whispered Amy Rodriguez from her communications station. What happened here? The closest planet was completely black, its surface covered in what looked like ash and smoke. The second planet glowed with an unnatural red light, as if massive fires were burning across its surface. Only the third planet, furthest from the sun, still showed patches of blue and green. Sensors are picking up massive amounts of radiation from the first 2 planets, reported Lieutenant Carl Johnson from the tactical station. Carl was a young officer who had joined the Liberty crew just before they left Earth. Whatever the Corvin did to those worlds, nothing will grow there for thousands of years. Dr. Peter Collins studied the readings on his screen. Those planets weren't just attacked, they were completely sterilized. Every living thing has been killed. Jake felt sick to his stomach. An entire solar system had been turned into a graveyard. How many people lived here? According to the Velhari transmissions we decoded, about 12 billion people lived across all 3 worlds. Peter answered quietly. Set course for the third planet, Jake ordered. Maybe we can find survivors. As the Liberty moved closer, to the remaining planet they began to receive weak radio signals. Amy worked frantically to decode them, and soon the bridge speakers crackled with alien voices speaking in the Velhari language. They're still broadcasting, Amy said with relief. The signals are coming from underground locations. I think they're hiding in shelters beneath the surface. The Liberty entered orbit around the planet, which the Velhari called their homeworld. Even from space they could see the damage. Great black scars covered the continents where cities had been burned. The oceans were filled with debris from destroyed ships and stations. Captain, Carl said, his voice tense. I'm detecting movement on the surface. Large metallic objects near what used to be the main city. On the screen, they could see massive alien ships sitting on the ground like metal mountains. The ships were dark gray and covered with sharp angles and weapon ports. Even at rest, they looked dangerous and threatening. Corvin ships, Jake said grimly. They're still here. Dr. Helen Brooks, the ship's medical officer, had been studying the biological data they had received from the Velhari. Captain, I've been analyzing their physical descriptions. The Velhari are much smaller and weaker than humans. Their bones are fragile, and they come from a world with lighter gravity. They were never meant to be warriors. And the Corvin, Jake asked, much larger and stronger, built for war. They're natural predators. Jake made a decision that would put his crew in danger. We're going down to the surface. We need to make contact with the survivors and see what help we can provide. Sir, that's extremely dangerous, Carl warned. Those Corvin ships could attack us at any moment. Then we'll have to be very careful, Jake replied. Prepare a shuttle for departure. I want a small team only. Amy, Helen, and Peter, you're with me. Everyone else stays on the ship and monitors for trouble. An hour later, Jake piloted the small shuttle through the planet's atmosphere toward the coordinates where the Velhari signals were strongest. The landscape below them was heartbreaking. What had once been forests and farmland was now ash and ruins. Rivers had been poisoned, and the air was thick with smoke. They landed near a mountain range where the signals were coming from. As they stepped out of the shuttle, they immediately noticed the smell of burning and death that filled the air. The sky was dark with clouds of ash, and the sun could barely be seen through the smoke. The air is breathable, but barely, Helen reported, checking her medical scanner. We should keep our breathing masks ready. They followed the signals to what looked like a natural cave opening in the mountainside, but as they got closer, they realized it was actually a hidden entrance to an underground shelter. The door was a tau made of metal and stone, designed to look like part of the rock. Jake knocked on the door and called out in the Velhari language, using the phrases that Peter had taught him. We are humans. We received your message. We are here to help. The door remained closed for several minutes. Then, slowly, it began to open. Behind it stood a group of aliens unlike anything humans had ever seen. The Velhari were about the size of human children, but clearly adults. Their skin was pale and almost transparent, showing blue veins underneath. Their eyes were large and dark, taking up much of their faces. They moved slowly and carefully, as if they were always in pain. One of the Velhari stepped forward and spoke in broken English. You are the humans who sent the message? Yes, Jake replied. We came as soon as we could. We want to help you. The Velhari's large eyes filled with tears. You are too late. Most of us are dead. The Corvin killed billions of our people. They destroyed our worlds. They took our children. Helen immediately began scanning the aliens with her medical equipment. They're malnourished and injured. They've been hiding down here for months, maybe years. The Velhari led them deeper into the underground shelter. It was much larger than it appeared from outside, with tunnels and rooms carved into the rock. Thousands of Velhari were living in the caves, the last survivors of their entire civilization. Tell us what happened, Jake said gently. An older Velhari, who seemed to be their leader, began to speak. The Corvin came 2 years ago. At first, they demanded we surrender and become their slaves. When we refused, they began to destroy our cities. They killed anyone who resisted. They took our young people to work in their mines and factories. How many Corvin are there? Peter asked. Millions. They have conquered many worlds before ours. They have weapons we cannot fight, ships that can destroy entire cities, soldiers that feel no mercy. Amy had been recording everything with her equipment. What do they want? Why do they do this? The Velhari leader's expression became even sadder. They do it because they enjoy it. War is entertainment to them. They broadcast our suffering to other worlds they control. Our pain makes them happy. Jake felt anger building inside him like he had never experienced before. Where are they now? Most of their fleet left after they finished destroying our cities. But they left guards. They come to hunt us for sport. They use us for target practice. Helen was treating injured Velhari while listening to the conversation. These people have been tortured, she said quietly to Jake. Some of these injuries are from weapons designed to cause maximum pain without killing quickly. They want us to suffer before we die, the Velhari leader explained. Quick death is too merciful for them. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling of the cave and the Velhari immediately began to panic. They're coming, one of them whispered. The Corvin ships are moving. Carl's voice crackled through Jake's radio. Captain, those Corvin ships are powering up. Their engines. I think they detected our shuttle. Jake made a quick decision. Everyone back to the shuttle now. But the Velhari leader grabbed his arm. Please do not leave us. We know you cannot fight them, but please do not leave us to die alone. Jake looked at the thousands of frightened faces around them. These were scientists, teachers, artists, and families. They had never hurt anyone. They didn't deserve to die. We're not leaving, he said firmly. We're going to get you out of here. How? Helen asked. We can't fit thousands of people in our shuttle. Before Jake could answer, the cave entrance exploded. Rock and debris flew everywhere as a massive Corvin soldier stepped through the smoke. The alien was over 8 feet tall, covered in black armor, and carrying a weapon that glowed with deadly energy. The soldier spoke in a deep, threatening voice that was translated by Amy's equipment. Humans, we have been waiting for you. The Velhari told us you were coming. Now you will die with them. More Corvin soldiers poured into the cave. The Velhari screamed and tried to run deeper into the tunnels, but there was nowhere to go. Jake pulled out his sidearm, knowing it was useless against the armored giants. But he wasn't going to let innocent people die without a fight. Amy, send a message to Earth, he said as the Corvin soldiers advanced. Tell them what we found here. Tell them the Corvin hegemony must be stopped. The first Corvin soldier raised, his weapon pointing it at a group of Velhari children who were cowering behind their parents. That's when Jake Morrison, exploration captain turned protector, fired the first human shot in what would become the greatest war in galactic history. Captain Jake Morrison's shot hit the Corvin soldier in the chest, but the alien's armor absorbed the energy blast without any damage. The massive soldier turned toward Jake with what could only be described as amusement. Primitive weapons, the Corvin said through the translator. You humans are even weaker than the Velhari. But Jake's shot had given Amy Rodriguez enough time to do something important. She activated her emergency beacon, sending everything they had recorded back to the Liberty. The images of the destroyed worlds, the suffering Velhari, and now the Corvin soldiers would reach Earth in a matter of hours. The Liberty's weapons officer, Lieutenant Carl Johnson, had been watching the situation from orbit. When he saw the Corvin soldiers enter the cave, he made a decision that saved everyone's lives. He fired the Liberty's mining lasers directly at the mountainside above the cave entrance. The mountain collapsed, trapping the Corvin soldiers inside, but also creating a new exit for the humans and Velhari. Jake grabbed the Velhari leader and shouted to his crew, "This way! Move, move, move!" They ran through the collapsed tunnels as more explosions shook the mountain. The Liberty was firing everything it had at the Corvin ships on the surface, buying them time to escape. Helen Brooks carried 2 injured Velhari children, while Peter Collins helped elderly aliens who could barely walk. They reached their shuttle just as the Corvin ships began to return fire. Jake piloted the small craft through a storm of alien weapons fire, dodging energy beams that could have destroyed them instantly. The Liberty's defensive systems protected the shuttle until it reached the main ship. "Get us out of here," Jake ordered as soon as they were aboard. The Liberty jumped to faster-than-light speed just as the Corvin fleet launched missiles at their position. They had escaped, but barely. In the cargo bay, Helen was treating dozens of Velhari refugees. They had managed to rescue. "How many did we save?" Jake asked. 43, Helen replied sadly. "Out of thousands." Jake felt the weight of failure on his shoulders, but Amy had news that would change everything. "Captain, I've been monitoring communications from Earth. Our transmission got through. The entire planet has seen what the Corvin did to the Velhari." 3 days later, they received a direct communication from Earth. Admiral Frank Burton appeared. On the main screen, his face serious and determined. Captain Morrison, by order of the United Earth Defense Council, you are to return to Earth immediately. What you discovered out there has changed everything. When the Liberty arrived at Earth, 2 weeks later, Jake was surprised to see the planet's orbital shipyards working at full capacity. New ships were being built at an incredible rate, and older vessels were being retrofitted with weapons. Jake was brought before the Defense Council, where Admiral Burton, General Patricia Hayes, and President Karen Phillips were waiting for him. The room was filled with Earth's most important leaders, all watching recordings of the Corvin atrocities. Captain Morrison, President Phillips said, your crew has made first contact with an alien civilization. Unfortunately, you've also discovered that we're not alone in the universe and some of our neighbors are monsters. General Hayes leaned forward. Tell us about the Corvin military capabilities. What are we facing? Jake spent 2 hours describing everything they had seen. The Corvin ships were large and powerful, but they seemed to rely on brute force rather than advanced technology. Their weapons were destructive but not particularly accurate. Most importantly, they appeared to be overconfident. They think all other species are weak, Jake explained. They've been conquering civilizations for so long that they don't expect real resistance. Admiral Burton studied the tactical data. Our ships are smaller but faster. Our weapons are more precise. If we can avoid direct confrontation with their main fleets, we might have a chance. A chance to do what? Asked Dr. Stephen Clark, the head of Earth's Science Division. President Phillips stood up and walked to the large window overlooking Earth. We're going to war, Dr. Clark. For the first time in human history, we're declaring war on an alien species. The room became quiet. Everyone understood the magnitude of what she was saying. The Corvin hegemony has committed genocide, the president continued. They've destroyed entire civilizations and enslaved millions of beings. Earth cannot stand by and allow this to continue. General Hayes began outlining the military response. We're mobilizing every ship we have. The UES Valiant, Defiant, and Ranger are being equipped with our most advanced weapons. Captain Sandra Bell will command the carrier group, and Colonel Mike Thompson will lead our Marine forces. What about allies? Jake asked. The Velhari mentioned other species that were conquered by the Corvin. Maybe we can work with them. Doctor, Clark nodded. We've been trying to contact other alien civilizations based on the data you provided. Some species are responding, but they're afraid. The Corvin have ruled through fear for centuries. Admiral Burton assigned Jake a new mission. Morrison, you and the Liberty are going back out there, but this time, you won't be alone. You're going to help us build a coalition of free species to fight the Corvin. Over the next month, Earth transformed itself into a war machine. Factories that once produced civilian goods now made weapons and armor. Ships designed for exploration were modified for combat. Even civilian vessels volunteered to carry supplies and refugees. The human approach to warfare surprised everyone, including humans themselves. Unlike the Corvin, who fought for conquest and entertainment, humans fought with purpose and precision. Military academies taught officers to protect civilians and minimize unnecessary destruction. Captain Sandra Bell, now commanding the carrier UES Valiant, established new tactics for space combat. Human fighters, designed originally for asteroid mining operations, proved incredibly effective against larger Corvin ships. The pilots could maneuver in 3 dimensions better than any species the galaxy had seen. Meanwhile, Jake Morrison led the Liberty on diplomatic missions to contact other alien species. They found the Zephyrians, aquatic beings whose water world had been partially conquered by the Corvin. The fish-like aliens provided valuable intelligence about Corvin military bases and supply routes. They also made contact with the Ethereal Collective, energy beings who existed as pure consciousness. The Ethereals had been trapped in containment, fields by the Corvin, and used as living computers. They offered to help humans coordinate attacks across multiple star systems simultaneously. Dr. Peter Collins worked around the clock to establish communication protocols with dozens of different species. Each alien race had its own language, culture, and way of thinking about warfare. But they all shared one thing: hatred for the Corvin hegemony. The turning point came when Amy Rodriguez intercepted a Corvan military transmission. The aliens were planning a massive attack on the remaining free worlds in the galaxy. They intended to finish their conquest within the next year. "We're out of time," Admiral Burton announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "The Corvan are moving faster than we expected. We have to act now." President Phillips made a final address to Earth and the growing coalition of alien allies. "Today, humanity joins the greatest fight in galactic history. We didn't choose this war, but we will finish it. The Corvan hegemony has ruled through fear and cruelty for too long. Today, that ends." The human fleet, now joined by ships from a dozen different species, prepared to launch the first coordinated attack against Corvan forces. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for battle. Colonel Mike Thompson's Marines were loaded into assault ships, ready for ground combat on alien worlds. Captain Bell's fighters were armed with weapons that could punch through Corvan armor. Engineer Tony Martinez had worked with alien technicians to create new technologies that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. But the most important weapon the humans brought to the war wasn't technology or tactics. It was something the Corvan had never encountered before: the willingness to risk everything to protect strangers. As the fleet jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward their first target, Jake thought about the Velhari refugees they had saved. Those 43 survivors were now working with human engineers, sharing their knowledge and helping to plan the liberation of their homeworld. The galaxy was about to learn that when humans heard a cry for help, they didn't just send aid. They brought hope, they brought justice, and when necessary, they brought war. The first target was Corvan Base Omega, a massive prison facility in the Rigel system where the aliens kept slaves from dozens of conquered worlds. The human fleet arrived in perfect formation, with Captain Sandra Bell's fighters leading the attack and Admiral Frank Burton commanding from the flagship UES Defiant. Jake Morrison watched from the Liberty as the battle began. The Corvan had built their base inside a large asteroid, thinking it would be impossible to attack. But human miners had been working in asteroids for decades, and they knew exactly how to crack them open. "All ships, this is Admiral Burton," came the voice over the communications. "Remember, we're here to save lives, not just destroy enemies. Protect the prisoners at all costs." The Corvan defenders were caught completely off guard. They had never faced an enemy that could coordinate attacks across multiple ships so precisely. Human fighters moved like a school of fish, attacking from all directions at once while the larger ships targeted the base's weapon systems. Captain Bell's pilots flew their fighters deep into the asteroid's tunnels, something the Corvan had thought was impossible. The narrow passages that were meant to protect the base became death traps for the defenders as human ships maneuvered through them with incredible skill. Colonel Mike Thompson and his Marines used special drilling equipment to break into the prison sections. They fought through Corvan guards while wearing powered armor that had been designed for construction work, but worked perfectly for combat. "This is Thompson." His voice crackled through the radio. "We've reached the first cell block. My God, there are thousands of prisoners here." The Marines found aliens from species they had never seen before, all of them weak and injured from years of slavery. Dr. Helen Brooks and her medical teams immediately began treating the worst cases while the soldiers continued fighting through the facility. The battle lasted only 6 hours. When it was over, Corvan Base Omega was completely destroyed, and over 50,000 alien slaves had been freed. But more importantly, word of the victory spread across the galaxy faster than the humans had expected. Captain Morrison, Amy Rodriguez reported from her communication station. "We're receiving messages from resistance groups on dozens of worlds. They're asking for help, and they're offering to fight alongside us." The liberation of Base Omega was just the beginning. Over the next year, the human-led coalition attacked Corvan facilities across 3 star systems. Each victory brought more allies and freed more prisoners. The humans discovered that many species had been fighting the Corvan for generations, but they had never been able to work together effectively. Jake found himself commanding not just the Liberty, but an entire fleet of ships from different worlds. The Velhari provided intelligence about Corvan weak points. The Zephyrians used their knowledge of underwater combat to attack Corvan bases on ocean worlds. The ethereal collective coordinated communications across vast distances. But the humans brought something special to the Alliance. They had a gift for bringing different groups together and making them work as a team. Human officers served on alien ships, and alien crew members joined human vessels. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species were fighting together for a common cause. The Corvan Empire began to panic. They had ruled for so long through fear and overwhelming force that they didn't know how to fight a real war. Their commanders started making mistakes, and their soldiers began to retreat instead of fighting to the death. The Corvan are calling for reinforcements from their home system, reported Lieutenant Carl Johnson during a planning meeting. Intelligence suggests they're pulling ships from across their empire to defend their capital world. Admiral Burton smiled grimly. Perfect. That means they're leaving their conquered worlds less defended. We can liberate more planets while they concentrate their forces. The final phase of the war began when the human fleet launched simultaneous attacks on 12 different Corvan strongholds. It was the largest military operation in galactic history, with over 1,000 ships from 50 different species working together. Jake Morrison led one of the attack groups to the Velhari homeworld, the same planet where he had first encountered Corvan cruelty. The Velhari survivors who had joined his crew were finally going home, and they were bringing an army with them. "There," said the Velhari engineer, who was now part of Jake's bridge crew. "That mountain where you found us. The Corvan turned it into a fortress." The battle for the Velhari homeworld was personal for Jake and his crew. They remembered the faces of the people they couldn't save, and they were determined to make sure no one else would suffer the same fate. The Corvan defenders fought desperately, but they were overwhelmed by the coordinated attack. Human ships provided precision fire support while Velhari fighters, flying ships built with human technology, attacked targets they knew intimately. When Colonel Thompson's Marines stormed the mountain fortress, they found something that made them all sick with anger. The Corvan had been using Velhari prisoners in gladiator fights, forcing them to kill each other for entertainment. Video recordings of these fights had been broadcast across the Corvan Empire. "Sir," one of Thompson's sergeants reported, "we found the broadcasting equipment. They've been sending these torture videos to every world in their empire." Jake made a decision that would become famous throughout the galaxy. Instead of destroying the equipment, he ordered his crew to use it for something different. "Amy, can you hack into their network?" "Already working on it, Captain." Within minutes, Amy had taken control of the Corvan communication system. Instead of torture and death, the Empire suddenly began receiving messages of hope and freedom, videos of liberated slaves returning to their families, images of former enemies working together in peace. The psychological effect was devastating to the Corvan war effort. Slave workers across the Empire began to rebel. Corvan soldiers started to surrender rather than fight to the death. The Empire, that had ruled through fear for centuries, began to collapse from within. The final battle took place at Corvan Prime, the capital world of the Empire. Admiral Burton commanded a fleet of over 2,000 ships, representing every free species in the galaxy. The Corvan had assembled their entire remaining navy to defend their homeworld. The space battle was the largest in galactic history. For 12 hours, ships fought among the moons and asteroid belts around the Corvan capital. But the outcome was never really in doubt. The human-led coalition had learned to fight as one massive organism, while the Corvan could only think in terms of individual ship combat. Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, led the final assault on the Corvan Palace. His Marines fought through elite guards to reach the Emperor's throne room, where they found the alien dictator preparing to destroy his own planet rather than surrender. "If I cannot rule the galaxy, then no one will," the Emperor declared through his translator. But engineer Tony Martinez, working with technicians from a dozen different species, had already disabled the planet's destruction systems. The Emperor was captured alive, and the war was finally over. The victory celebration lasted for weeks across hundreds of worlds. But for Jake Morrison and his crew, the real reward came when they returned to the Velhari homeworld. and saw children playing in the sunshine for the first time in their lives. Dr. Helen Brooks established the first interspecies medical center, where doctors from different worlds worked together to heal the wounds of war. Amy Rodriguez became the head of the new Galactic Communication Network, ensuring that no species would ever be isolated again. The Corvan Empire was dissolved, and its former territories became independent worlds. The species that had been enslaved for generations were free to rebuild their civilizations with help from their new human allies. President Karen Phillips spoke at the signing of the Galactic Freedom Charter, a document that guaranteed the rights of all intelligent species. Today we promise that no world will face destruction alone, and no people will cry for help without being heard. Jake Morrison, now Admiral of the Galactic Defense Fleet, kept the Liberty as his flagship. When asked why he chose to keep an old exploration ship instead of a modern warship, he smiled and said, "Because we're explorers first, warriors second. Our job isn't to conquer worlds, it's to protect them." The galaxy had learned that when aliens cried for help, humans brought war. But they also brought something more important: hope, freedom, and the promise that good people would never stand alone against evil.